Hello everybody, I have something really excited, at least for me, to show you. So I know that everybody loves that project. I would like to record or film the whole project, but I couldn't. So I would like to bring you something like a copy tip talking about the OSLs with that model. So in this one, I painted something different because the OSL that I made it was something like thinking about the RGB, like red, green and blue color effect from, for example, PC gaming or stuff like that. Something more to represent like sci-fi or something more from the future. So I think for that kind of model will work perfectly. And I've decided to try to design this kind of OSL. Maybe it's a bit weird because it's not the typical way to represent them, but I would like to give you and talk about all the tips, and I think the way I work it on this one to give you as reference to improve your skill painting OSL and discover a different way to paint them. So in this one, the first tip I can give you is first think about the background. So the background is really important. It's something darker in that case, and I'm going to play with something super saturated inside of this OSL. So what happened with this? At the beginning, I was playing with this kind of yellow. So this is a fluorescent color. Why I use fluor color for that mission? This is just because I would like to play with the most saturated color in the world. So I thought that this one could be great for that mission. So what happened with this one? If you see, the yellow color looks a bit colder. It's more like green, something like that. So this is the fluor yellow. So then the next highlighting I'm going to add will be this color plus white and a bit of yellow inside. So why? Because I would like to move the temperature of this to something warmer. So just for the beginning, I'm going to play with two different temperatures, just moving the next highlights to something warmer. It's just a bit for sure, but I think will be enough to create double contrast and get this powerful on the OSL. So once time we will do that, we will start with the airbrush to blend and add tonalities and stuff like that. But first, previously, this is something really interesting. I use this kind of dark green to use as a frame of this OSL. So this is something that everybody will say that this is wrong, because around the OSL you have to play with lights and stuff like that. Maybe, but my way or my idea or my knowledge, it's if you play with something darker, you will increase the intensity of this OSL. So for that, I've decided to add this kind of dark green as frame around that OSL. I don't want to use just black, because black doesn't have color inside, and this one has color, temperature, because we look darker and colder, and then I'm going to add something really dark, perfect to represent this frame. It's like a key color. So when you have that, it's time to play with the airbrush to continue blending, adding tonalities. You will see all this process, and it's I think a crazy process. So the most important when you start painting inside at the beginning, it's easy, because then if you made mistakes like I made it, for example, it's just paint them, and it's outside will be easier. So then the part about the airbrush. So tips about this. First, the pressure. 1.4 or 1, I think it's the pressure that you have to use, but it's depend of the airbrush, the compressor, and the tube. How long is the tube? Maybe the result will be different. So maybe I'm playing with 1 kilogram, and maybe for you it's too low. For me it's okay. So then remember, so you have to think to play with a low pressure because you will spray really close to the model, just that. So maybe in your mind it's like, why Sergio said that, because it doesn't have sense, but it's true. So it's depend of the compressor, the airbrush, and the tube could be a different pressure, at least a different feelings. Maybe 1 kilogram for you, it's not enough, or maybe it's too much. So just test with a low pressure, okay? Then the other tip, as you have seen on the screen, talking about the trigger, you have to press the trigger whole time. Always, the air should be completely continue. The air flowing should be continue. Then just pull back and pull from the trigger to spray more or less painting. Just that. This is the tip. The whole crazy airbrush has resumed in that. And then talking about colors, this is just my mind, and I try to do this crazy RGB effect, and I've decided to create this kind of LED lights, and I was playing with orange. Then after seeing that I like it, I've decided to add much more orange. So you will see that I'm going to continue adding different orange, like fluor orange or red, for example. And then I'm going to add again some shadows to increase this frame around that. So at the beginning I'm going to play with these tonalities inside of the airbrush and represent like glowing effect around this, to represent better the effect about the light. But then in some places where I felt that I need create more contrast, I'm going to use some different shadows to create the frame. Remember that if we talk about fireworks, you will understand that the fireworks, everybody watches them in the night because we need a background completely dark. So in the night is the perfect background to see the fireworks. However, if you try to watch them in a sunny day, maybe you will see them, but never will be the same because you can't see perfectly the pigments about this light. So you can't see the differences about each one. However, if you have a dark or black background, you will see perfectly. With that, I don't want to say that you have to paint always with a black color around these OSLs. But it's true that if you play with something desaturated, close to black, or grays or browns, could be better. And then if it's darker than the rest of the OSL or the rest of the colors around that, I think, in my opinion, or with my experience, will work better. For sure, you can play with a white armor and then try to represent the OSL. But if you want that, I think that we have to work in different kind of OSL, knowing this one, because maybe the background will be more or less the same, and you want to represent correctly the effect about this OSL, because everything will have the same light. This is the reason why I've decided to play with something darker, and then the OSL something super saturated and with highlighting close to pure white that you will see later. Now it's just to represent this kind of crazy RGB effect. So I'm playing with that kind of fluor orange, and then I'm going to add some red to increase the temperature, because I would like to have something warmer and represent better this red color. I know, my mind works in that way. Remember that you have to enjoy, so if you want to represent something crazy or something that nobody did it, just try, why not? So you have to enjoy doing everything, this is your hobby, so this is the most important, enjoy, having fun. So what I try to represent that with that. So I move the cold temperatures to one side, just the colors that you have seen with this fluor yellow at the beginning, and then these warm colors with orange and red to the other side, and more or less in the middle. You don't have to play or paint exactly in the middle, but more or less between both, I will play with the highlighting near to white, and at the end with pure white. That pure white will be the key. So now I'm playing with this orange or red to represent like a glowing effect around that, to represent better the effect about this OSL. You have to think that the surge of light from the OSL should be the most saturated and lighter. than the glowing effect around that. Doesn't have sense play or paint with exactly the same color. If you want a green OSL, the shades of light of this should be lighter or maybe near to white, but for sure lighter. Because if you play just with a mid green, then the OSL around that, this glowing effect, will be darker. So at the end maybe won't work as a OSL as you have on your mind. For that, the light as clean as possible, near to white, and super saturated in some places. So as you see, I'm playing with different colors, but then you will see how I increase again the light. This is just to blend, to represent all the effects, all my crazy ideas, and then I will focus again all my attention on the search of light. But as you see, the most important could be play with these different temperatures, cold and warm in that case, and play with a background darker and desaturated, and play with the search of light lighter and saturated. So with all that ideas, you will have awesome OSLs. And I think really easy, because if you see, so you don't have to create crazy ideas with a lot of blending or stuff like that. Remember that you are watching that video with a lot of zoom, then it's smaller for sure, you can compare with the airbrush. But the distance should be super close. So bring down the pressure of your compressor to spray perfectly, but with a low pressure, just to control the spiders, and then pull back the trigger as lower as possible, because how much you add pressure and paint, you are near to create the spiders. Okay, so now it's time to back to the brushes. So the area with the airbrush, we did everything. Our job is done. So now it's time to paint some edge highlighting where you lose them and increase the white area, just to represent better the effect about this. So something that you have to know about the edge highlighting. Be careful, touch with the tip of your brush with lowest pressure. Always lower. So if you paint lower and you need more time, you will do something really great than if you try to paint them quicker and thick lines. Be careful with the edging, because it's the key, it's the final result, and you have to do it as thinner as possible, okay? So we will increase here this edge highlighting with a yellow color, and then inside, because I felt that we lost the value of the light inside, and we want to represent this LED light, I'm going to increase in the center the powerful from this light, in that case with yellows, and then I'm going to add a bit of white in the areas where I need to increase that value, and just that. After that, our OSL will be done, so you don't have to do something different. With that, I think you will have really awesome results. So now it's time to increase this highlighting near to white and then pure white. And after that, it's done. So here you have a perfect example as copy tip how to create this kind of RGB effect or lighting on your OSLs. So after that, I'm going to show you the final result with some pictures, and I hope you can enjoy watching all that stuff. And for sure, paint by yourself different OSLs to show me your improvement, okay? So I hope you have enjoyed watching that copy tips, and see you in the next video tutorials. Bye bye!